By getting the win against the Rams, the Chiefs made sure that they can double down on what they're doing well and expand what they're trying to get to. That includes the roster we're going to get today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we do your team every day for everyone in every major sport. You can find us on every platform for free here on YouTube, like, sub, and hit the bell, as well as all the audio platforms. Thanks for making us your first listen. Why don't you try another Locked On show for your next one? Maybe it's the NFL draft show. Maybe it's the NHL fantasy hockey show. It's the one that I'm listening to the most right now because I am in over my head. We have a lot to talk about with the Chiefs coming off of this win against the Rams and very quickly turning the page towards the Bengals that we'll talk with Matt Derrick tomorrow. But I am Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as NFL33.com for all your team building needs and RGR Football.
And I'm Chris Clark. Thank you for listening. We do really appreciate it. Go hit the likes, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get more from us. Go give us some iTunes reviews or on Spotify. We'd appreciate those as well. Really quick before we dive into the Chiefs, it just broke right before the show started, and it's funny you mentioned the NFL draft. Kansas City's NFL draft hopes, in my opinion, kind of got a little bit worse for the wear today with Penn State's tackle going back to school.
He wasn't ready anyway.
Okay, well, just wanted to throw that out there.
Very, very few snaps as a college career at this point. So, hey, we're going to take it easy on that. There's going to be options.
But it would drive other people down. It's really where I'm going with that. So
True. There's always something, right? It is that season. The college season has wrapped up. We will start including some draft talk as we go through, but we have a lot to cover right here, right now. And that is about the Rams. What we saw and how much of it is applicable to what we're about to see. Patrick Mahomes in his postgame press conference, everybody today, very clearly moving on to the Bengals. So we're going to hunt and peck and find what we can take away that we didn't discuss live postgame. If you missed that, make sure you go check that out. And remember, we are live postgame on YouTube with Matt Derrick every game, and then you get it on the audio platforms as well. What stood out to you the most?
29 snaps for Juju. And I know that that's probably not what stands out to most people the most, but to me, I think that was a big storyline just because it really felt like they were trying to sprinkle him in and really get him ready for this coming game against the Bengals. And really quick, couple of things on that. Jamar Chase sounds like he'll be back as well as Joe Mixon. So there you go.
Yeah, it is a double-edged sword here. The Chiefs are getting Juju back. They warmed him up a little bit. Now the Bengals are getting guys back. I was surprised, actually, by that number as well. It felt like it was more around the 18-20 mark, not nearly 30 snaps for him.
Right. But they didn't have that many snaps on offense. That was the other thing, is the Rams really slowed the game down and kept the possessions low.
Well, Patrick on the offensive line played 76 snaps. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah,
it's not light.
But they've been over 80 in a lot of games. I guess you're right. I thought it was closer to 65, 70, or 65 or 70, but 76 is a pretty good number. But still, to be in 28 snaps, I mean, you're barely a little over a third at that point. And he was easily getting 50 to 60 snaps a game when he was normally playing is normal. So, and I do want to point this out. The thing that I thought was interesting was they kept him out a lot in the first half until they got into the 2-minute drill. And then they brought him in. Mm-hmm. So to me, that tells me that they have a specific thing that they knew he would be ready for and they wanted to do in that 2-minute drill, and they feel he's a good fit for it. So I think that's a good sign for that as well.
I agree. Use him where he's most dangerous and try to limit the rest of the field. I think that worked. I was a little bit surprised, especially after the muffed punt. Sky Moore actually outsnapped Juju in this game. And I thought once they're going to put him on the field, they'd probably let him run a little bit more. I'm actually really glad to see that. We kind of gushed about Sky last night a little bit. I think upon further review, it's even more so stepping into that role back-to-back games with good output. I won't say it was great because it was, 36 yards on the evening, but a couple of nice catches and, again, recovery from that muff punt. If he's getting that many snaps, I think Watson got 64 snaps. Lot in there. What does that tell you about where they are as a receiver core?
Well, it tells me Sky Moore, they're just not ready to get him fully involved in the offense yet. And that makes sense. I mean, Andy Reid has never been a guy that's really gone to a rookie full time. That's just the reality of what Andy Reid does and the way he does things. So to me, it doesn't shock me that they're doing with more what they're doing. What it tells me about Justin Watson is that they feel comfortable with him on the field, that he's going to do enough good things that they're going to put him on the field. And that's okay with them because they were in a situation where they couldn't play Juju very much because of the injury. They didn't want to play Juju much because of the injury. And MBS was still on the field for over 50 snaps. So, I mean, you still have, those two guys in there, wide receiver. So I think that says a lot. And I'm curious to see how it changes going forward because it certainly seemed like to me against the Jaguars, they went 3 tight end set a lot. And don't get me wrong, I understand some of that was wide receiver driven, but I don't think it was just wide receiver driven. I think it was based on what they thought they could do matchup wise. And I think that's going to be the way that they're going to deploy things going forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. A couple of things that stood out to me along those lines is Justin Watson played 64 snaps, but in particular, he was out there for his run blocking. We've seen him do that very well, so I'm glad to see that. But he actually ran 40 routes compared to MVS's 37.
Yep.
That surprises me a little bit.
It doesn't me. And I say that because Watson has shown that he can catch the ball when the ball's thrown to him, and MVS is struggling in that area.
Well, I think that also tells you where this is trending right now. MVS made a couple of plays. Let's not get it twisted. But I think what you're looking at down the line is Justin Watson can pull out a role for himself here. They just signed Bryan Edwards to the practice squad, a guy who played a lot of snaps in Las Vegas. And a guy that I really like coming out of school that I think can grow into an X starter as well. So there's some option there. But what stood out to me on the tight end spot, like you were saying, is they ran a lot of 2 tight because you got Noah Gray at 50 total snaps, Jody at 17, but it was very, very telling. Noah Gray's snaps were split down the middle, 22 on passes. 26 on passes, 24 on run blocks. Whereas Jody was on the field for 17, 14 of those he was in a route.
Yep. Yeah, I know, and I think that's going to continue. I think that what they like from Jody Fortson is he gives them a Travis Kelce-esque type receiver option. Obviously, again, not Travis Kelce, but he is able to move very well in space and get open and use his large frame to help himself. And I honestly think that that's another reason why they like Justin Watson as well, is Watson is a wide receiver that is almost built like a tight end.
Yeah. Speaking of frame, long frames, one other note. For the first time in 2022, Orlando Brown had a 0 pressure game. That happened 4 times in 2021. So it's maybe he's starting to catch up with himself. Now, obviously, there wasn't a huge edge rush there, although I think Floyd had come off of a pretty good game, so there was that. We'll talk about the running backs and the defense on the backside of this, but now a word from our sponsor, Turo, because it's the world's largest car sharing marketplace. Super simple. You can book with them any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. You can browse that selection. The vehicles are there for just about any occasion or budget that you want. You can book an SUV or a minivan or for a family road trip, maybe a pickup truck if you don't have one and you got to get something done. Maybe it's even an EV for some kind of test drive, or look at what you're looking to buy in the future. All you have to do is every trip, make sure that you're with Turo because they're backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions do apply, but they are there. Forget about those old style rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Now, the drive that I'm looking for is not just off the offensive line, it's out of the backfield. We saw Isaiah Pacheco continue to kind of have a stranglehold there. With CEH out, they sprinkled Rojo in for the first time this season. What was your general impression of him?
He ran hard. He caught the ball out of the backfield, which was surprising because one of the things he struggled with as a rookie, and not even just as a rookie, but in his rookie contract with Tampa Bay, was catching the ball out of the backfield. He's obviously worked on that because it looked almost natural. I'm not going to say it was 100% natural, but it looked like he was comfortable doing it. And that is very important because if he wants to have a role in this offense, he needs to be able to be that guy that could possibly be a third down back. Although it sounds like Kansas City is going to get another running back that could possibly fill that third down role as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We'll talk about that in just a second. I want to point out the big difference for me. A lot of people have been waiting to see Rojo, right? And yes, his average was 3. Pacheco ended the night on 3.1. He was over 8 to begin with, and it kind of wore down from there. Here's the difference: 0 missed tackles forced for Rojo, for Isaiah Pacheco. And I think that's really where the difference is. It's one thing to run hard. It's another thing to be successful at either, surviving contact or making people miss. So I think that's the difference. Yep. So what they did is go sign Melvin Gordon, who was recently released from the Denver Broncos because he can't hold on to the ball. But he's a veteran presence. And I think this is tied more to Jones than it is to Pacheco or CEH. What do you think?
Well, I've seen people actually say it could be tied more to McKinnon, talking on Twitter, and that kind of makes sense to me. Melvin Gordon can step in. He can pass protect. He can be that guy if something happens to McKinnon. And to be clear, it doesn't look like they've signed him yet. He was not on the transaction list as of when we're recording this. So it would be a move that is going to happen on Tuesday. So by the time you hear this, it's possible they will have signed him. But it does sound like he's going to be an option in Kansas City, and maybe they activate him. Maybe they bring him up to do a couple of things. And to me, if they're looking at him in that type of role, a third down back, which I think they kind of need, he does give them the ability to kind of replace McKinnon if something was to happen to McKinnon. And with as much as he's dealt with injuries at times, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. They've got a stable now where they have backups for their backups.
Yep.
I think it truly is Pacheco, CEH, McKinnon, not necessarily in terms of like snap count, but in terms of role. So if any of those guys down, now you have replacements for all of them. And I think that's what it is the running back position has a lot of attrition most years for the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's been fairly solid so far. This first big chunk of missing time for CH is the big hurdle. But you're looking at a team that's got to play 20 games. And so I feel like if they accomplish their goals, they're going to need the depth at the running back spot because I don't think they're all going to survive 20 games.
Yeah, and with the way Pacheco runs, it would shock me for him to make it through 20 games. I hate saying it, but it would be very shocking for him to make it through 20 games, especially considering he's a rookie.
Yeah,
I really do think that he's going to hit a rookie wall. He played at Rutgers, and nothing against Rutgers, but it's not top-level NCAA competition anyway, and you're playing way more games. So that's going to be something to watch on the back half as well.
Agreed. Now, we talked a lot last night about how well the young secondary played. In order to have a positive performance from a young secondary, you have to have the pass rush. When we take a look at today, a couple of things that stood out to me that I didn't quite expect. Frank Clark ended up with 6 pressures, a little bit more than I thought. First time that he's leading Chris Jones, who ended up with 4, but did get that sack. And here's the thing. George Karlaftis got his first solo sack. Good for him. He did get a secondary pressure as well. He and Frank Clark both hit 21% win percentage in their pass rush snaps. That's great. And I think that's a really positive sign for George Karlaftis. There's one really guy who did better. Who do you think it is?
Dana.
Oh, you're cheating and looking at the list, aren't you?
No, I wasn't actually. Thank you very much. I did not look. Before we move on, I just want to say this really quick. The other thing that stands out to me, and I'm not going to put a ton of stock in PFF grades, but 2 of the Chiefs' top 3 corners made the top players of the game for Kansas City.
That's kind of nice.
Snead was number 1.
It's like he's good or something.
Yeah, I know, right? But McDuffie having another good game shows a lot. And Creed Humphrey had another good game, and we're going to have some more to talk about him here coming up in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. McDuffie and Snead are going to be featured this week. I think they need to be interchangeable. We're going to talk about that with Matt tomorrow, and as well as we get ready for this game through the next couple of shows. So don't worry, we will get to that.
There is a ton to talk about, though, when you start looking at this defense, what they're doing. And I'm glad you brought up the pressure rate because you start seeing what they're able to do with a Mike Dana getting involved with as many pressures as he's getting. And then you add in a guy like Carlos Dunlap, who you know is going to be motivated for this week.
Yeah. He's got the length. I think he and Karlaftis in particular have to be ready to bat the ball. Joe's done a pretty good job of getting the ball out so far this season. And I think when he's at his peak, that's what he's doing. Now they're getting Chase back. Chase in much the opposite. Instead of like warming him up this week like they did with Juju, they could have had Jamar Chase last week. They chose not to. That's the understanding that I have. And so now you're going to get him first glance back. Do you think that he carries rust?
I think he carries rust a little bit, but I think he's still going to be ready for the game. I will say this, though. If you want to get your team healthy, play Kansas City, because look at what Los Angeles did a couple of weeks ago. Now Cincinnati's doing it. It just looks like teams are focusing on the Chiefs to bring back players. And I get it. I mean, you're going up against the number one team in the AFC. And, what we talked about earlier with bringing in Edwards as a wide receiver, I think that's a great move for them. But bringing in a guy like Gordon, that could be an underrated signing. We're going to have to find out if he's able to do anything or if they even need him to do anything this year. Mm-hmm. But if he steps in and has to actually get some playing time and plays well, that's a huge win for a guy like Brett Veach, bringing in just somebody at the tail end of the season and not even think about.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that's all you can ask. I think especially if you keep the pressure off of Gordon, you have a chance to supplement and get what you need done when you need it done.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. And when we get back, we have a lot more to talk about, talking specifically about Creed Humphrey and a couple of more guys for Kansas City. But I need to tell you about one of our newest sponsors, Audible. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a new slate of football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. Find Block Forever now wherever you get your podcast. Block Forever is a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil and Audible. Khalil takes the conversation about football to the next level. He gives football fans an insider's look at the game through the eyes of the greatest players and personalities of all time. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week ahead of Thursday Night Football. Ryan and guests discuss topics like the player's psyches, sports betting, playing through pain, being a leader, and how to deal with combative teammates. Here, nothing is out of bounds. Available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Catch the full Block Forever series available anywhere you get your podcast. Available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game. All right. So a couple of things I want to talk about really quick. Pro football voting started. Patrick Mahomes is number 2 in the league. Behind,
Pro Bowl?
Yeah, for Pro Bowl.
Okay.
He's number 2 in the league in votes, in the AFC in votes, and I forgot who the number 1 guy is. He's number 2 anyway. Travis Kelce is up. So Mahomes leads his position at QB. Travis Kelce leads his position at tight end. Finally, Creed Humphrey is getting the love. Hey. He is leading the position himself. And Pacheco is making it as well as a return specialist, not a running back.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And also Chris Jones is on there, but
that happened for another former wearer of number 10. So, hey, good for him.
Yeah. And Tyreek Hill's on that list as well. But
I'm sorry.
Obviously, we'll see how that shakes out. I still think there's a couple more Chiefs that deserve to be on there. But it's good to see Creed Humphrey finally getting some recognition in the NFL and just around the fan bases, because that's what this is right now.
It has to be. And I think Chris Jones is going to be in there as well. Aaron Donald still has the mystique. But I think we all saw, even as of yesterday, Aaron Donald is now trying to play up to Chris Jones's level.
Yep. Hard to argue with that. And one of the other things I want to talk about really quick is a lot of people are talking about the season Mahomes is having. And some people are even talking about the season Travis Kelce is having. One of the stats that I loved from yesterday, our buddy Field Yates put out something about Travis Kelce's just under 10,000 yards receiving, which is above Tony Gonzalez in 11 seasons. Travis Kelce's done it in less than 10, and he didn't play a single offensive snap his rookie year.
Right. So that's really 9 years versus 11.
Right. Oof. Now, granted, it's a different game. I get it, whatever.
Yeah.
But here's where I start looking at what we're being blessed with in Kansas City. You look at what Patrick Mahomes did his first season. Over 5,000 yards, over 50 touchdowns. I don't think he hits 50 touchdowns this year unless he just starts tearing it up the last couple of weeks. I don't think they have the schedule that is going to require him to hit that number of touchdowns. But he's leading the league in passing yards. He's leading the league in touchdowns right now. And he's in a situation where he has more passing yards than anybody else in NFL history in 80 games. Do you know how many games he's played?
I do not.
74.
Wow. It's half a season. I mean, that's crazy.
He's at just under 23,000 passing yards in 74 games. He has 6 300-yard games this season. Nobody else in the NFL has it, and he's done it in 6 consecutive weeks.
That's nuts. Where is he now? He's at 29 touchdowns, right? And 3,500 yards so far.
Yeah, he'll easily hit 5,000 as long as they are, throwing the ball, which I can't imagine Andy Reid's going to change that. So he'll easily hit the 5,000 mark for the second time in his career, in my opinion. And then you start looking at the touchdown list. I just don't think he's going to get 21 in the last. So they play 11 games, so they have 6 more. So I don't think he gets 21 in 6 games.
That's a lot.
Can he?
That's 3.5.
Yes. Right. Is it possible? Yes, but I don't expect it. But he's still leading the league by, I think, 6 touchdowns. And Travis Kelce has the most touchdown receptions in the NFL as a tight end.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
You watch what you're getting in this offense, really appreciate what you're getting with Mahomes and Kelce right now, because it is extremely special. And you look at what Mahomes is doing passing-wise. Matthew Stafford is the guy that leads the NFL for the next 150 games, I think, in passing yards. So anything over 80 up to about 230, I think Matthew Stafford is leading, and then he passes on to Drew Brees. Mahomes is going to be passing Stafford for the next couple of weeks, and Stafford's going to have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 more games than Mahomes has ever played. So it's insane what he's doing. And Stafford was playing in a league where passing was becoming more of the norm. So it's not like they're playing in different eras.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, just the absence of Barry Sanders all by itself changes what they had to do. So yeah, Megatron, all the years Stafford was there.
Yeah, he had Megatron. Whew. Yeah, it's just insane. I look at the stats, and you look at where Mahomes is. Obviously, he's going to probably be in the Pro Bowl this year, or he will be the starter for the Pro Bowl, would be my guess. Whether or not he plays, we'll have to see. Hopefully he does not, because he'll be playing the week after that. But,
let's hope.
Lots to really like. I mean, I think you look at this team, and the other question, looking forward, Andy Reid also said on Monday that they came out of this game pretty healthy. I don't know that they'll get Tooney back this week. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Who knows? But it does sound like Juan Thornhill's getting better. It sounds like, Chris Lamons is going to probably be available. And I know that doesn't seem like a huge deal, but when your special teams are as bad as they have been, having any additional special teams help is going to help you.
It certainly will.
And Andy Reid did give a vote of confidence for Dave Tobe. And I'm really glad Matt has pointed out what Matt pointed out last night, because it is extremely important to realize how many key special teams guys they lost this past year.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no way around it. When you lose those guys, that's what's going to happen. But the fact you had to make a statement about Dave, I think is I think it's troublesome. We're going to see how that goes. And obviously you can use all the help you can get. Lamons aside, can contribute in that way more so than anybody else on this roster. So let's hope that they get that figured out. Now, we're going to talk about individual matchups, what needs to come, and how do they move on, whether those guys will be in it or not. I have a tendency to think Joe Tooney is maybe playing a little possum. That's just me. We're going to talk with Matt about that tomorrow and see where we're at. So don't miss that show as we break down what's going on out at the facility with Matt from ChiefsDigest.com, the beat reporter. Thank you guys for spending your time with us. Hope you enjoyed this ball game. We're going to move over quickly towards the Bengals because this is such a great matchup. A lot of revenge factors come in here. We're going to get to all the details all week, and we will have our breakdown and predictions for you on Friday. Don't miss any of it. If you are new to us, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell there over on YouTube. We are here 5 days a week for you. Thanks for spending your time today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.